Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. In this series, we're aiming to help business owners, business leaders, and fellow coaches by sharing our experience and the experience of our guests who've coached people all around the world in all of different sectors and industries that you can imagine. So, very little more to say other than do please now sit back, relax, and enjoy this edition, and look out for a special offer for our loyal audience at the end of the programme. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Coaching Conversation. And today, I'm joined by Jess Rogers, all the way from Oxford in England, and we're going to talk about her experiences of helping leaders maximise the talent of the people that they lead. Jess, welcome to the Coaching Conversation. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
So I'm Jessica Rogers. I am a leadership development specialist and executive coach, and I'm really delighted to be here with you today.
Jess, how did your career take you into a leadership development role and indeed an executive coach position? What happened to bring you to here?
Right. So I started my career in marketing back in the late 90s, and I was working on children's entertainment brands. And I did this for about sort of 10 to 12 years. And it was whilst I was doing this, actually, I had my first taste of coaching. I was on a young leaders course. And so this was in about 2002. So then in 2008, just as I was returning from my first maternity leave and I was having a bit of an existential crisis, it really it made sense for me to get some coaching. And actually, it was in that process that I thought, well, maybe I'll do some coach training as personal development. And what that actually led to was me resigning from my job, continuing the training. And here I am, some 15, 16 years later. And I absolutely love working with leaders. I love working with organizations to help them to develop their leaders, helping organizations and individuals to really take a step back and to really provide like a safe and objective space for challenge, for reflection, for action planning. You know, I think sometimes leaders really lack this space. And so to be able to give them that valuable time so that they can develop themselves, they can course correct if necessary, and just generally to help people to be the best that they can be. That's really what drives me.
Okay. What would a typical client look like? Are they big organizations? Are they privately owned?
Okay, so my clients vary really. So they'll be professionals in corporate environments. So I have large corporate clients, also public sector. So I've worked with the NHS and also in education. Got clients in entertainment as well as financial and professional services. So my clients vary, but on the whole, they're business leaders who really want to develop and really improve their impact and effectiveness, I'd say, really. Or, you know, they're organizations who are who invested in and committed to helping their people that work for them to really develop their effectiveness.
So that was our topic for today. How do they maximize the talent within their talent group? So how does that normally manifest for a leader? When by the time they're engaging with you, what have they identified, or how do you help them identify the challenges that they're facing?
So I think the key thing is to do that kind of appraisal of where you are now. I think it's sometimes people don't really give themselves or don't have the time to be able to really stop and think, okay, what's going on for me right now? You know, what's working, what's not working so well, where do I want to improve, where do I want to develop? So I think that's always the starting point with our particularly with one-to-one coaching. When organizations bring me in, usually there's something specific that they've identified that they want to work on. And so then it's a slightly different conversation. But even then, actually, I do like to start with a kind of, where are we now? let's see where we are now, and then we can start to think about where we want to be. Because unless you've got a really clear idea and a clear feeling for where you are now, it can be difficult to think about, what's going to come next.
It's interesting. You gave an example there that I can relate to. As an executive coach myself, obviously I coach like you do a lot of leaders, business owners. And when you're doing this, so where are we now bit, that some of their challenges, some of the things they're trying to change for themselves and for their organizations are amongst their team.
Mm.
So getting more, not in a disciplinary sense, but getting more support, more input, more more results, more outputs from the team around them, and that often forms quite an in-depth part of the objectives for the coaching program, how they can identify those needs and what they can do. How do you help them with that? What experience have you got for yourself in these coaching environments?
Yes, it's that like, what I'm hearing is you're talking about that kind of culture piece. What's the culture that they're creating for those around them to actually get to where they want to be. And I think culture is really important. And people can sometimes underestimate, as individuals or leaders as individuals can sometimes underestimate just how much power they have over, what the culture will look like, or what the culture, um, how productive the environment is. And I think that in my experience, leaders who become really clear and confident in their own abilities and their own vision, and then who value the people around them, they almost automatically emit that kind of good energy. And in my experience, as soon as that energy starts and then their actions really match their words, that's when they really start to make the changes and see the development they want. And I was working with a leader recently who had particular caring responsibilities, and as such, his work hours that he was doing were basically were to enable him to be able to fulfill those commitments, but also to do his job well and lead effectively. And so what he did was he really fostered a culture in his team. The output was key, not the work hours. So there were core meetings, and then each individual had to, was clear on what their tasks and responsibilities were, and they were clear on their expectations. And so the job just got done, and it just enabled people to have that work and life. And I think that what I saw from this was this pragmatic and empathetic approach really worked. Because what happened then is I coached some of his team members as well, and they named exactly what he told me he was trying to achieve in his team. So he actually didn't sort of had to necessarily spell it out, but just his actions and the way that he led, people felt what he was putting out there. So there was this kind of mutual respect and trust. And as a result, he had a really high performing team.
That's great. That's a really interesting thing. One of the things that you mentioned there is that he had this other constraint, this caring constraint, which meant he couldn't work on presenteeism himself. He couldn't just be there all the time. And that really is a brilliant role model as the leader for what you hope others to do. I don't mean that they should have caring responsibilities, but they should get a balance back into their lives, because it's so easy, particularly in a senior position, isn't it? You just get consumed by this tsunami of work that never goes away.
Mm.
So look in the other side of your practice. So when you're working as a leadership development expert, how do you help those organizations identify the talent that they've got and how to get more from it? Are there different techniques?
It's interesting actually, because a lot of the time when organisation comes to me from a leadership development perspective, they've identified the people that they want on the programme. They've normally said, these are the people that we want, and we'll have a conversation about what it is they want from the programme. And sometimes that might lead to a bit of an adjustment, and maybe there'll be usually more people that they bring on, different people that they bring on. But usually they've sort of, in terms of development, they're either aspiring leaders, so those who have been identified as those who are going to be catalysts for change, or leaders in the future, and also catalysts for change in the future. They're usually people who have been identified, or those who are from minoritized backgrounds as well, because it's not about saying those from minoritized background need leadership development, it's saying let's try and level the playing field and let's give people access or equal access so that they can actually then step up and we can see some change and some diversity in those senior leadership
Right.
positions.
And do you, when you're rolling these programs out, do you have any particular techniques, any go-to programs that you would normally see work well?
I don't think there's not a I don't have a formula if that's what you're asking. There isn't a
Yeah.
formula. I meet the client where they are. I mean, and it's as simple as that, because different clients will have different needs. And so yeah, I wouldn't say there was a hard and fast technique or hard and fast formula that I use. No.
And when you're helping these organizations to develop their teams and or the individual leader that you're coaching, does your work then have a combination of soft skills, so e.g. coaching, and hard educational, they need to go and learn about this skill, so it could be financial modeling or it could be commercial skills or negotiation skills. Do you effectively put together a combination of hard real learning and the softer aspects of it? Is that
Yeah.
how that works?
Absolutely. There's definitely that kind of the hard learning, and you've named, negotiation skills, communication skills, identifying their strengths and playing to their strengths, overcoming those negative beliefs. But then, and there are, the soft coaching skills as well. And I've as a result as well, people sometimes can be signposted to additional training that they may want or need, that they feel empowered to be able to say, actually, this is what I want. This is where I see the gaps myself. And then they can access those kind of more hard technical or job skills that they feel they may need.
And do you find that once an organization is bought into this, because obviously to some extent, starting with you could go anywhere in terms of a budget, in terms of a timeline, it could be anything. Do you find that organizations are ready for this? They're ready to open up and make themselves vulnerable, as it were, in terms of saying to their staff, tell us what you need, and we're here to facilitate that. Is that working for you, do you think?
That's an interesting question to answer, actually, because I think that perhaps maybe 3, 4 years ago, I would have said yes. Organizations were open and they were really looking to see what change they could make to create bring more equity into their workplaces. So those who are in leadership positions, to ensure that people were able to access the right training, the right support, to get them to where they wanted to be, to get them, to get those into different leadership positions, those who perhaps hadn't had the opportunity to get into leadership positions before. I would say that times are changing, definitely. I think with development in organizations, there are different questions are being asked, but I think those organizations that remain committed to creating sort of equality or equity in their workplaces, those organizations who are willing to invest in their staff, those organizations who are listening to their staff as well, are the ones, I believe, that are seeing more productivity, that are seeing more staff retention, that are seeing people being able to work in a way that's sustainable, definitely. So I think that the organizations who are committed and remain committed to developing their staff are seeing the benefits, definitely.
It's an interesting dimension that I wasn't really expecting. So, do you see a desire for equity as the start point for some of your clients' work, or is it just something that happens along the way?
It's a definite start point.
Right.
Organizations have recognized that their leadership makeup isn't one that necessarily reflects their client, their service users, or they've recognized that perhaps they're hearing their leaderships don't have that diversity of thought, don't have that diversity of experience, of lived experience. And so it's a conscious and very intentional effort to create more equity. And the leadership development really does enable that.
That's a really insightful perspective. If organizations are increasingly becoming focused or alert to the importance of equity, that is
Mm.
incredibly important step forward, I think.
Mm.
Just sticking with that, does that come from anything that's happened through COVID and hybrid working and people's reevaluation of their relationship with work, do you think?
All of the above. I think people, COVID, as we know, changed the world of work as we know it. And yes, while some organizations are trying to get back to what was before, I think it highlighted so many inequalities in lots of different areas. And as a result, organizations are seeing that they have to do something different. And I think as well, people in the workplace are recognizing that they can ask for something different. And I see it definitely with I won't say younger workers, maybe sort of more millennial workers. They're not prepared to just slot into, what is the status quo. They're asking difficult questions, and if organizations aren't able to answer them and aren't able to actually, let's say, put their money where their mouth is in terms of saying that they want to create equitable environments, they're not attracting the best talent.
No, or they're not retaining them. I mean, I can look at my client base and I can see people who've got a talent drain because they've become inflexible or unimaginative, perhaps is the right word. And
Absolutely.
I, yeah, attraction is one aspect, but retention is another. And it isn't only about the younger age group, though they have different pressures, particularly with families and so on. But it it is also true, I think, of older groups who have just reappraised what they want from their world of work, and it's just as uncomplicated as that, really.
Absolutely, and I think because I think you use the word sort of imagination, being imaginative. I think there is that as well. There is the imagination piece, but I think as well, it's organisations being honest and being able to almost hold a mirror up to themselves and say, okay, when we look at what the top looks like right now, is that really representative? And if it's not, what are we going to do about it? And it will take time, but those who are embracing that and trying to do something different are definitely seeing the rewards of that.
Yeah, I see it in my client base. As I said, I think the more inclusive people are, the more genuinely committed to equity people are, they just get a better response. They get a better response from their customers, they get a better response from their trading partners, they get a better response from their staff. It's just a
Absolutely.
better way to be, really. Um, when you're working with clients, so let's take the coaching programs, for example, how long do they typically last?
So typically, I'd sort of 6 to 9 months for a one-to-one coaching program. There is no kind of hard and fast rule. It does depend on the client's requirements, but I generally will work with individuals for 6 to 9 months. And in terms of programs, the programs can actually go on for up to a year, with regular input. So it's not every week for a year, but it might be monthly with check-in,
Yeah,
so, or it might be bi-monthly with a monthly check-in. It depends on the client, but with programs, because I'll be working with groups, it's about not just building their skills through the program, but also building the relationships. And so, they build an immediate trusted network there in the program.
yeah. That's one of the great things about group coaching, isn't it? You have an enormous input, or the process has an enormous input to building the team dynamic as people have gone through this shared experience, whatever that is. They get to know each other better. They make themselves more vulnerable. They open themselves up, don't they? And they bond in a way that rarely happens other than through those kinds of experiences. It's an interesting value added, I think, to coaching groups.
And I
Um,
think my own experience as well. I mean, okay, it was a while ago now, but when I was on the program, I'm still in contact with a couple of the people that I was on that program with because we built such a strong connection. And then, the beauty of LinkedIn, you keep in touch with people, and so I think you can never underestimate the power of that kind of that cohort feeling and the trust that you build over that period of time.
yeah, I think that's right for you as the coach, and it's
Mm.
right, I think, within the group themselves.
Mm.
And I suppose the next question comes from that. If a program is 6 to 9 months and it may be longer if it's a specific development program, do you find many of your clients come back to you, they finish one program and they come back to you again? Is it the sort of thing where you get a lot of repeat clients, or is it you do it, you move on? How do you find that?
I do get a lot of repeat clients, definitely. I have clients, I can think of somebody in particular who has moved to their third organisation, and I'm coaching them again. I started in one organisation with them. Their organisation actually sponsored the coaching. They moved to a smaller organisation. They funded the coaching themselves, and they've just moved to another organisation, and they've spoken to their organisation to sponsor the coaching again. So I do definitely get repeat programs with people. And I think when you build that relationship, so when I talked about the relationship, I meant when I was being coached myself as part of a program, but also to your point, as a coach, you build that relationship with people, and it becomes it's a partnership. Yeah. And so as people grow and evolve, we're never the finished article, right? We're always changing, we're always evolving. So as people evolve, they get to a different stage, they might think they want some coaching and they come back, or they sometimes come back and say, can you recommend somebody? And it's an ongoing relationship. It's very rare for me to have worked with an individual and then that's it. I never ever speak to them again, even if it's just a quick check-in every now and again. It's a happy Christmas, whatever it might be. The relationship keeps going.
Yeah, that's my experience too. Clients you work with them, they achieve some things, and then life moves on. A year, 2 years, whatever, they'll come back and say, can we pick up where we left off, or I've got these new challenges, this new situation. And it's also true that once you've coached a group, the individual members of the group can turn to you individually as well and talk to you and say, that was great, but I need some help specifically with this over here. Absolutely. So just bringing this whole conversation to an end, Jess, where would clients or members of the audience be able to find you? How could they reach you?
So I am on LinkedIn, so they can connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's Jessica Manu Rogers. And if they put in Jessica Rogers leadership coach, I usually come up. Although there are two of us called Jessica Rogers who are both leadership coaches, bizarrely. Wow.
Have to change your name.
I know. Well, that's why I put my maiden name in brackets in the middle, so there's some differential. And also my website. So it's jessicavrogers.co.uk. So they can find me there as well.
Great. Jessica, it's been great speaking with you. Thanks for your time today. And that's it, everybody. Don't forget, you can find Jessica on LinkedIn, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. Bye. So there you have it, the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful, and I hope it did what it set out to do. As promised at the beginning of the programme, here is a special offer for you, our loyal audience. If you reach out to me at gwiley@sagegreen.com and mention this podcast, we'll make available to you a coaching programme for you and all your team at a 50% discount. So where can you reach us? So it's definitely gwiley@sagegreen.com. You can also reach us at the Executive Mindset at sagegreen.com, and our website is clearly theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you enjoyed this, do please leave us with a wonderful rating on Google. We'd really appreciate that. So nothing more for me to say now other than see you again soon.